Right, good. So, welcome. Today we are on session two, and session two continues the work we started in session one, which is the understanding that as a supervisor, you have two roles, a leadership role and a managerial or administrative role. We define that the leadership role is mainly to do with persons, how you're going to help your team members cope with complexity and change. That's a big challenge. How do you get your team members to cope with complexity and change? And secondly, how are you going to handle the administrative or the managerial functions? So we've spent some time on the leadership, and today we want to spend some time on the managerial role. So last time we spoke, we saw that in the managerial role, you're dealing with resources other than persons. So that once you graduate from a team member to become a supervisor, the company is putting you in charge of the company's resources. So those resources can be persons working in your team, it can be machine, it can be raw materials, it can be inventory to sell, it can be equipment. So therefore, they are putting you in charge of the resources of the company, and they are hoping that you will be able to produce something that is more valuable than is put in. So that every company transforms things. So therefore, you take raw materials and you transform it into finished products or finished services. Now that transformation of taking raw materials and transform it to finished product or finished services is a transformation. And as a supervisor, a big part of your job is to supervise that transformation so that products are coming in at, let's say, at $100, and when they transform, they are supposed to be selling to the customer for $150 or to $175. So that means that they've taken raw materials, they have transformed it, and now it is more valuable than when it came in. So as a supervisor, you are supervising that transformation. You are supervising the raw materials or the resources and transforming it into a higher value. So that's a big responsibility. And therefore, the company is placing that responsibility on you because you are in the middle. You have team members below you and you have management above you. And in that middle role, you are taking instructions from management and trying to get the team members to do a proper transformation. And the more valuable the transformation, the more valuable you are to the company. So you want to be able to take extreme care of those resources that the company has given to you. Those resources of time, machine, raw materials, inventory, finished product, all of those resources have to be transformed into something more valuable. So how do you supervise this transformation? You have to supervise the transformation in the most efficient and cost-effective manner to produce the highest possible value. So therefore, you are taking a raw material and transforming it into a higher value product. If there is a lot of wastage, either of time, of raw material, or badly attending to the machines, or the transport, or the timing, or the delivery, or the reach, if any one of those things are done inefficiently, what happens is that the transformation has a lower value. So let us assume we have two supervisors and they have two different teams. They may both start off with the same raw materials, but one supervisor results in a lot more wastage than the other supervisor. The other supervisor has less wastage and a greater yield. So that second supervisor is more valuable and that team is more valuable. So as a supervisor, you are constantly checking that you are not creating wastage, that you are not being inefficient, and therefore you are getting the highest yield by quantity and quality. Now, quality is important because if it is you get a high quantity, but the quality is low and there's a lot of rejects, and there's a lot of rejects by the customers, then that does not count as transformation. In fact, that is wastage. So as a supervisor, you are always looking to see how am I taking these raw materials and transforming it into a way most efficiently without little wastage and the highest possible quality and the highest possible yield. So to do that, you have different functions. You have different functions to do that. And on the screen there, you will see 4 functions, or we could add on a next one in between here, a 5th one, and I'll show you that one. But the major 4 functions are planning, organizing, directing, and control. Those are the main 4 functions as a supervisor that will make you have the least wastage and the highest quality and the highest yield. So every time you must be looking at that. So the first thing, planning. You have to be planning and understanding how much raw materials am I going to use in this shift? Is this raw material of sufficient quality? Do I have enough persons to man my machines? Is the machine working properly? Are the materials in the correct place? Are the materials of the correct quality? Do I have staff that is trained and can do the job? Is there a certain amount of expertise? Do I know how much raw materials I am starting with and how much finished products I want to hand over? Do I know what is the level of quality that has to be handed over? So all of these things, you have to plan for them. So before you can start a day's or a week's work, you have a lot of planning to do. Now, let's say that we have 2 supervisors, and one does a little planning and one does a lot of planning. You will find that the one who does little planning will eventually end up with a lot of wastage because that supervisor did not plan correctly. They did not have sufficient raw materials. Some raw materials were missing when they were supposed to start the shift. Some persons did not turn up for work when they were supposed to start the shift. The machine broke down while the shift was going on. They did not supervise the quality of work, and therefore there was a lot of rejects. And they did not pay attention to the capabilities of their team members, and as a result, the quality and quantity were reduced. So that person did not plan properly. So before you can start your shift, whether it is in sales, whether it is in warehousing, whether or not it is in production, whether or not it is administration, you have to plan to make sure that you have all the equipment and materials that you need for your shift. Let us assume you're a supervisor in accounts, but you don't have enough photocopying paper and you have to produce a report. And when you go to print the report, there is insufficient paper or there is insufficient ink in the photocopying machine. Well, obviously that will cause a delay, it will cause inefficiency, and the report may not be ready in time. So you want to make sure a good supervisor plans to make sure that all the things I would need for this shift will be properly there. And that requires a great deal of planning for the week and the day. So the other supervisor who takes time to know what they're going to do in the next shift and the next week, they will make sure that they put their plans in place. And therefore, they will have everything at their disposal of the correct quantity, of the correct quality, of the correct items, so that when the shift starts, or the day starts, or the week starts, they have everything at their disposal. If you are planning, you will make sure that you check and make sure that everything is there. I would dare say that a good supervisor plans consistently all the time, well in advance, going down to the warehouse. Do we have enough this? I have a shift next week for product A, and I need raw material 125. Do we have enough? And I will need 3 crates of 125. Do we have enough of that? Do I have enough people going to come out to work? Are the machines maintained properly? Do I have enough oil and they are maintained and they're able to work? Is the raw materials of the correct quality? So planning is a big part of your daily activity in your administrative or managerial role. The second thing is organizing. In organizing, you will have to make sure that you put those things properly together. It's one thing to have to plan to make sure you have enough raw materials, but if you did not organize for those raw materials to be next to your machine, well then when it's time to start, you can't start. You had planned to use 5 people, but when it was time to start, 2 were absent. So you had a good plan, but you did not organize correctly for it. Excuse me. You did not organize correctly. So it's one thing to plan, it's another thing to organize. So therefore, we take our plan and therefore we make sure. So who it is going to deliver the raw materials by your shift? Who it is going to take away the finished product? Do you have the correct forms? You have to organize for your plan to be executed. So therefore, you have a plan and then you start organizing the things of your plan to put them in place, to make sure they are there when you need it. So that if it is that you realize you have a big production to do and you need that amount of raw materials and it's going to fill up the space for the finished products, you have to organize that the people from warehousing, you will then sign over finished products into inventory. You hand over. I remember in my days in production, there you will always have people trying to supervisors trying to outsmart each other. So the supervisor production say, I produce 15, and the warehouse people say, but I only received 14. So there's a discrepancy of one. So therefore there's something went wrong in the organizing, that there was not a correct handover. There was not a proper handover. So if you plan correctly, and then you organize to make sure that your plan will be executed, then you are well on your way. Then you have to direct people. So you shift is the start, you have the people standing up by the machine, you have the raw material there, you have the photocopying machine, or you have the inventory to sell, or you have your van to go and sell with, or deliver with, or you have goods coming in and the container is there, you have to load a container. All of those things, you have it organized well. Then you have to give instructions, and that's directing. Well, I want you to do A, and I want you to do B, and I want you to do C. So for you to direct, you have to have an organized plan. Otherwise, when it comes to directing, you will be saying things in wrong. Say, well, Johnny, I want you to start loading the goods. And then Johnny say, but you know, I don't have a HSE belt, or I don't have a HSE helmet, or I was supposed to do this, but I don't have the correct boots, or I don't have the correct headgear. Then you have planned, you have organized, but now you're directing, and probably it's showing up that your organizing wasn't so correct. Or that you direct somebody to do something, and then that person tells you, but I can't do that. I don't know how to use that machine. I was never trained on that machine. So therefore, for your directing to come out well, you must make sure that your organizing is done well. So you plan, then you organize, and then you direct. Now, directing is very, very important because you are issuing instructions. Now, as you are directing, remember you're dealing in directing, sometimes you're dealing with people. And therefore, this is where both your leadership role and your managerial role may come together. If you were not doing good leadership, when you come to directing people, people will object to do what you tell them to do. If your leadership role was badly done, then you will have a mutiny on your hands when you come to directing, because you did not take time to build relationships. You did not take time to train people. You did not take time to see how you're helping people cope with the difficulties and the anxieties and the problems in their lives. So they are ill prepared. So when now you come to directing them, you have a hiccup, you have a pushback. So directing is part of your administrative or managerial function, but as you would realize, it also hinges on how well you did your leadership role. If you have been doing your leadership role, well, then people will be easier to direct. If you have been doing a poor job at leadership, when you come to directing people, people will object. The other thing to remember, if you were a member of that team and you have not done your leadership role well, when you come to issue instructions to people who used to work with next before, they will say, what wrong with he? Since when he become this high and mighty? Since when he now giving orders? Since when he believe he is the boss man or she is the boss lady? And they will push back. So for your directing to come over well, it must mean that you have spent adequate time leading. Otherwise, your directing will not done well. On the other hand, it could be that on a particular morning, you have planned, you have organized, and now you come to direct and you find a man break down and cry because his wife leave him and the wife run off with another supervisor. Well, then you have big problems on your hand. And you realize now, only when you come to direct, you realize that, well, there is more in the mortar than the pestle. So that is a challenge. I will give you an example of when I was in charge of a particular team, a big team. And I had two members of my team. And the two members, I noticed, like, they're supposed to hand over work one to the other. And there was a lot of hiccups. So I called another member of my team and I said, have you noticed that team member A and team member B, they're not talking, like they're not handing over the work, like they're not collaborating. What's wrong? And the other team member looked at me very, very surprised and shocked, and then said, Coach, you don't know they were having a relationship and they break up? I said, what? I did not know that. Say, Coach, they have been living together for the last 8 months. What? I didn't know that. And Coach, now they're in a breakup and now they're not talking to each other. What? I did not know that. So what happened? Why didn't I know all of those things? Probably because I was only interested in my managerial or administrative role of planning, organizing, directing, but I was ignoring some of my leadership role. So I felt very embarrassed. How could two members of my team be having an affair? How could two members of my team be living with each other? How could two members of my team be having a romantic relationship and I, in front of me, I don't know anything? I would say that was poor leadership. And when I told Sandy about that, Sandy says, well, you never know anything. So therefore, that gives me some kind of heads up that I must pay more attention to my leadership role. So it is very possible that that could happen to you. So when you come to direct your staff, then you realize that some relationship gone sour. Somebody, you put person A to work to person B, and you didn't know, just like I didn't know, that person A and person B had a romantic relationship, and now they break up, and now you in the monkey pants. Because these are your two best workers, and they're not talking to each other, so they don't want to work side by side. So your directing fall down. That is poor leadership. So even though we have differentiated between managerial role and leadership role, this is a good example to tell you that these things are not separate. They are different roles, but they come together in your role as supervisor. So you have to be macroing what's going on too, and counseling. And therefore, if I was paying attention earlier, 9 months before, I should have been able to see that team member A was putting on a track on team member B. And I should have been able to say that is not acceptable because it's going to lead to a breakdown. So that brings me to the next part before control, discipline. So that if it is when you come to directing and your directing can't work for some reason or another, it it leads to disciplining. You have to now deal with disciplining. So you may be planning, organizing, directing, and you before you go to control, after directing, you realize you need to discipline because somebody or bodies or persons have been doing something that was not acceptable. And therefore, when you thought your plan was in place, you had organized correctly, you now come to directing, something fell down. And therefore, you have to now discipline people. You know, why you came this morning, you had made a nice plan, you had all your raw materials, you had put the team together, you told the members of the team that they're coming, you organize it, and now when you go to start, somebody say, you know, Johnny did not come to work today. And Johnny is a critical part, so your directing has fallen down because now you have to scramble and you have to replace Johnny. If that has happened, now you have to go into disciplining. You have to have a meeting with Johnny as to how could he just not come out to work? When Johnny know that you were depending on him, and then somebody say they see Johnny at the beach, Maracas Beach on that day. Well, you have to be very disappointed, and therefore you have to come out with some disciplining because Johnny let you down. And what is going to happen? Your yield is going to suffer. Your yield is going to suffer. You're going to use a casual worker. What is happening with the casual worker? The casual worker not properly trained. What is going to happen? The casual worker going to produce inferior product. What is going to happen? Your quality is going to suffer. Your yield is going to suffer. So you now realize that because of your weak leadership, you plan, you organize, you direct, but now you have to do some disciplining. And that's where I found myself in that situation. I now have to call in the 2 staff members and then read the riot act that despite their broken down relationship, I cannot tolerate that they're not talking with each other and not handing over the work and they're talking each other bad behind the back. I cannot allow that. So I have to bring in some disciplining. Now, we're going to deal with disciplining because there is progressive disciplining, not because that happened, you're going to read the riot act and fire them. You have to start and there is a process. You have to give them a verbal warning and then another verbal warning and you have to write a letter, but you have to progress along a particular scheme of things to meet industrial court standards. But it is important that you start. Now, if it is you just do only verbal warnings, that person know you're a joker, the person is not going to change their ways. So in disciplining, you may have to become more serious. Otherwise, each time when you come to directing, your plans and your organizing fall down. And then finally, you have to control. What is control? Control is measuring what you had planned to have as a yield against what you actually got. So in your plan, you had planned to produce 100 high quality items, but actually you only produced 78. Now that is control. Control is measuring your actual versus your plan. And therefore you have to now go back and say, shucks, what went wrong? Why didn't I deliver? Why I only made 78 when I was in my plan I had 100? What are the things that went wrong? And therefore, how can I avoid that going wrong next week on my next shift? And that is what control is. So last time I told you that it is good to do up a little grid like this. So I produced a picture And I thought that this was a nice plan. Now, it could be more sophisticated. This one may not have enough room, but you have to decide what is enough, what is good for you. But this is just a template. So you have to look at that template and see how can I adapt that template to work for me. Now, why this template is good? Because it is on a nice little notebook and it is easy. So this is your weekly planner, a weekly planner. And therefore you can see, what am I planning to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? What organization do I need? Who do I need to direct? What disciplining had to be done that last week? And what was the actual versus the budgeted? And then some sort of write-up as to why it happened. So you should have on your left-hand side of your page of your book a nice plan. Now, this may not be big enough. If it is not big enough, you could have a fold out to have a more elaborate plan, or this plan could be in an Excel sheet, but it is up to you. But this is the concept, this is the template. On your right-hand side, as you will think about next week and as you go through the week, you jot down things that you have to do. These are not things that are part of the plan. These are ad hoc things that come up. So things that you have planned should be on this side. Things that you just come up and crop up, because things crop up all the time. So you have to put in a to-do list. And then in your to-be list, you have to say, well, what are you realizing you have to become better at? So that, for example, if this was my book on that particular week, I would have to say, I have to become more observant of my team members. Today, what happened is that two of them were having a relationship for 9 months and I never knew, I never saw. So it must be that I have a weakness in my observation and in my ability to know what's going on with my staff. So I have to be a more observant leader. Or people taking me for granted. I have to become a more disciplined leader. Or I have to become better at planning. So at the end of every week, you should have a plan as to how you will become better the following week. And you should have a to-do list that you try to scratch off as you get done. And you will have to have a planning sheet. So I would say, as a supervisor, you must have your weekly plan when you plan, organize, direct, discipline, and control. And you must be walking around with this notebook all the time. Or if it is not on a paper notebook, if it is, some of you have a tablet or you may have a laptop, well, then this similar thing can be done on a tablet or in a laptop. I like a hardcover notebook because it's so easy to use when you're walking around. And a big part of supervisor role is that if you have done all your planning, organizing, directing, disciplining, and control, you have a lot more time to walk around. Now, somebody had put up in the course stream that they find that they don't have enough time to do leadership work. And that is because probably, I am not saying this is the reason, it could be that they are not doing this side of the book efficiently. They're just coming to work and doing here. So they're just doing the right-hand side of the book. Every day they're just writing on what they have to do and they're just trying to become better, but they're not planning on this side. And then it could be that somebody is planning a lot on this side, but they're not becoming a better leader. So therefore they're ignoring this side of the book. So you must be careful to understand, to make sure that you are also taking and looking at both sides of the book, that you're not ignoring one side. Right. If we go on from there, so we will deal with disciplining at another time. All right, I just wanted to show you this. This is a budget, and therefore it is an important piece of financial information that as a supervisor you have to know. So that, for example, in this budget, this traps everything. Look at how much material. Now, you're not going to produce this budget, but the work you do enables these things to happen. The cost of goods sold, direct material. If you are wasting material, then the actual material versus the budget will be bad. So if it is you had direct material and you were going to, this particular person had planned that they would use $6,000 of actual material, that is raw material. That is 6 boxes of $1,000 of raw material, and they were planning to use 6 boxes. And they end up only using 5.5 boxes. Well, then that's good. They have a variance of 450 favorable, meaning that they actually did better than they had planned. So that's good, that's good. This person, how did they lose their labor? They planned to spend $22,500 in labor. That is a whole team of people. That was their salaries for the week. And they only used 21.5. So they saved $1,000. So that was very good. That supervisor did a good job. All of these, so you will see the total cost of the goods produced was supposed to be $62,000, but this person actually did the work at $60,000, so they had a favorable balance of $1,950. Wow, we give that person a round of applause. Now, if it is the accountant, because this is produced by the accountant, but you must be able, probably sometimes you may be able to access this information or not, but it is good to go and ask the accountant, you know, even if they don't give you the details, you know, how am I using the materials in my team? Am I doing well with the materials, or am I making a loss on the materials? Am I managing my labor very well? Am I using my overhead very well? And what is the cost? Am I going good? Also, for those people in sales, they had planned to sell 1,500 items, $1,500 a night, 1,500 items, but they only sold 1,400. So therefore, they fall short. They had a negative variance of 100. Now, a budget is an important part of a managerial role, an important part of an administrative role, because a budget traps how good you are doing. So that for everything in the company, every person or every department has a budget, or every team has a budget. Now, for some supervisors, they're not going to give you the information. But if it is, you must ask your manager, sir, how am I going in my team? Am I exceeding my budget? Am I producing it better than budget? Am I coming in good on budget? And therefore, a budget variance report is a very good thing that every supervisor must have in their head. That everything in a company works with a budget. And every department has to have a budget variance, which means that they have a budget for what they plan to do and they have what they actually do. So as a supervisor, you must always be trying to achieve the budget. You must always be trying to achieve the budget. Now, sometimes managers may have unreasonable budgets that they are expecting to do miracles. They're expecting to get gold out of straw. But if that is so, you as a supervisor must be able to show why that can't happen. You can't just say, well, I can't reach that budget. You must say, well, it is very difficult for us to reach that budget because the material that we have is not stretching. Or, you know, something that I keep asking for 2 more members of my team, and I am understaffed, and therefore I am falling back in my labor. Or the overheads is too high. I can't reach that. So as a supervisor, you must start thinking that you also have to work as a budget. And don't think that is a managerial job. Because if it is you are doing this very well, you will see that you will achieve a good budget variance. This person did a lot of good work, so that favorable. So therefore, production did a good job, but sales fell down. So the sales supervisor didn't do a good job, but the production team certainly did a good job, because in the production team, everything was favorable, but in the sales team, they had an unfavorable result. So you must be constantly seeing, what is my role? How am I supposed to be able to do this? Am I getting ahead? Right. So that's a lot for one session. And I want to go through some of the course stream and some of the things that people have been putting up. So if we go on the course stream, you will see that I suppose because all right, okay. You will see that I am making a lot of posts. So this morning I said, good day participants. We just uploaded session 2 discussion board. And before that, I said, good day participants. We just uploaded session 2 assignment 2. Please attempt. Before that, I said, good day team. We just uploaded a template for a weekly panel as part of the managerial role in session 2. That's what I just showed you. So all of these posts I did this morning. And then Cindy Sugrim Gulchan Charan had put this picture, which I found was a nice picture. And she said, in response to what Sandy had spoken about, she put up this picture. Prayer is when you talk to God. Meditation is when you listen to God. So I found that was very nice. So I liked it. I made sure that I liked her post. And I wrote here, thank Dean and Cindy for your uploads. This is excellent. Thanks for setting examples of self-directed learning as part of the course. Now, Cindy also put up this post. Meditation takes you beyond the mind's noisy chatter into the pure awareness that is the source of all of your inspiration and love. And she put up something by Mahatma Gandhi. So Cindy is taking her time to look for things and put the pictures up here. And therefore, you could write something in the course stream too. You can put a note, you could put a video, you could put a link to something else, you could put a picture, you could ask a question. You could ask a question, you could have an article. And right. Next, so that then in the sessions, which I was sharing the sessions with you. I was sharing that in session, all what I was showing you was in session 2. Just now I'll stop and ask you questions. All of that was in session 2. Then you have the assignments, and I wanted to look at what are the assignments. So assignments for session 2. Let's look at what assignments there is. First assignment in session 2. Please, and I found this was quite nice, if I must say so myself. Please select a challenge you are experiencing in your supervisor managerial role. Please share it with us, describing it in vivid detail. After having read the literature in session 2 or listened to the sessions, what do you think is the solution to the challenge? That's a good one for you to think about. Please select a challenge you are experiencing in your supervisor managerial role. So it's something that we are doing that we did today, either in your planning, organizing, directing, disciplining, and control. It could be that you are experiencing a challenge on one of them. This is not for leadership. This is in the managerial role or the administrative role. So please select a challenge you are experiencing in your supervisor managerial or administrative role. Please share it with us, describing it in vivid detail after having read the literature in session 2. What do you think is the solution to the challenge? Now, I had given you all my email address, coachbengo@gmail.com. Since last week, Thursday, I have not received one email. I will repeat. I gave you all my email address last week, Thursday. And even though I was very happy for my birthday greetings, I would have been just as happy, or not probably as much as, if I had also gotten some email with assignments. So please, let us have some email with assignments. If it is that you don't like to write, there is a way for you to record on your phone and then press share, and you can share it on an email and send it to me at the same email address. So you don't have to say, well, I don't like to write. You could easily send me a voicemail. You could email me a voicemail. Not WhatsApp, because that will just crowd up my phone. But you could email me a voicemail. All right, good. So that's a good assignment. Yes.
We can put it up on the platform.
Yes, well, that's what I'm hoping that you do.
Right, we'll do that.
All right, okay, and look at right here on the platform. You just have, you click here, submit assignment, and once you click there and you write it in and you press send, it will come to me. Right.
All right. So
that is the first assignment. That's a good assignment to do. I think I put up another assignment, but you could start with session 2 assignment 1. I put up a session 2 assignment 2. Let's see what that is. Please create, this is a nice exciting one that people will be happy and rubbing their hands together in joy and enthusiasm. Please create a tentative weekly planner like what I put up for your week ahead using the design of the weekly planner template in session 2. Please give us your feedback. Is it difficult for you to create? Do you think it will be helpful to you? Did you encounter any difficulties? If so, please explain. Did you make any improvements to the template? If so, what? So there are 2 assignments that are put up because most people have not done a session 1, assignment 1, 2, and 3. But at least you could start session 2, assignment 1, session 2, assignment 2. Right. Now, the other thing is discussions. Let's see what discussion. So session 2, I put up a discussion topic. Let's see what it is. Here it is. Nice discussion topic that you will have joy and happiness in doing. Please share with us in vivid detail your experience of the difference between leadership and management. What is your experience of the difference between, now that you've heard so much talk of leadership and management, what is your experience of the difference? Which role do you prefer? So are you more of a leadership person or are you more of a managerial administrative person? Why? Why don't you like leadership? Why don't you like administration? Which role do you avoid? That's a good question. Why? Is it that you are avoiding your managerial or administrative role? Well, then why are you doing that? And what are you going to do to increase your competence in each of your roles? I'm going to repeat that one. What are you going to do to increase your competence in each of your roles? And then finally, please write 1 submission on your own experience and make 2 comments on other person's submissions. Please do not criticize. Now, in the discussion board, it is you click on comments and you make comments. So let's go to discussions, the first one. Let me see what's happening here. Let me see some comments. Now, Carleen Ash, if you had gone on to the discussion board, you would have seen that on January the 17th at 4 p.m., she said, my issues is having to discipline employees without making them feel demotivated. That's a nice thing that she's saying. She's very humble and she's sharing her challenge. The videos and the readings has taught me there are different leadership styles I can use to approach this situation. Very nice. Leslie Evelyn, I have a little difficulty with the way things are communicated in the different departments from upper management. And then Leslie put up, then Julie, Rasha, Dan. This is a good one because Alana responded to Julie. So Julie said, I have a very heavy workload and it is about to get even heavier. This is leaving me less time to spend in my leadership role. We go non-stop until the end of the day. It is sometimes difficult to find time for me to practice my leadership role. And Alana responded to Julie by saying, we do have to make that extra effort and actually set aside time for this. So that's very good. That is what I want to see happening in the discussion board. So if you can see in the discussions, there's session 1 discussion board, which closes on the 25th. So you still have time to comment on that. And session 2 discussion board, which closes on the 27th. So you still have time to comment on that. You still have, what is that?
I had 4, 1 on the discussion session 1.
Yes, okay, well, that's very good. I appreciate that. And Sandy had looked at all the assignments that were done, including yours. And then also on the course stream, you could be making some comments on the course stream. And you can be doing your own little comments. I noticed that only few people are making comments. Probably people are feeling embarrassed or look at this this person, Cindy. Cindy just put up a picture, but that picture is so appreciative. Yes, yes, yes.
I think one of the difficulties is people have challenges in how to upload.
Yes.
So I think that is one of the challenges.
All right, okay.
No.
You don't have a laptop, but I am certain if you have an Android phone, it works just as well. I don't know if an iPhone, and I know all of you all are rich people and you have iPhones, but if you have a regular Android phone using Chrome, it should be able to upload. And also, those of you who have children who are doing online schooling and you bought a laptop for them, a Chromebook, well, then probably you can tell them, look, help me put up this, look at this, what this is, where this is, and you can look at it. It's Customer Service Academy of Trinidad and Tobago, eduongo.com. Eduongo, eduongo.com. And then you look for the Customer Service Academy. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to stop recording.